What's up guys, my name is Ace, and the Season 5 update for Black Ops 6 is here, and with that we saw a handful of weapon balancing. Most of these were just some minor range adjustments, and in today's video we're going to be going through all of these details, just like I do with every weapon balancing update. And without further ado, let's just dive right into this with the Goblin MK2. This one actually saw a range buff, and a fairly notable range buff to its maximum damage range, or its 3-shot kill range, if you're hitting the upper torso or upper arm zone. With this, it went from 25.4 meters up to 33 meters, so quite a noticeable improvement there. And our second damage range, where headshots are at least somewhat effective, that also saw a slight buff, but this one is less important. As for shotguns, all of the primary shotguns saw some buffs. However, the Olympia saw a notable nerf, and we'll look at that toward the end of the video. But let's have a look at the Marine SP. This one saw buffs to all of its damage ranges, aside from the maximum damage range, where you only have to hit 2 pellets on target. And most notably here, our maximum one-shot kill potential is now 11.4 meters, up from 9.7 meters, which will definitely help. This should be a noticeable buff when it comes to that maximum one-hit kill potential, as long as we're hitting at least 4 out of our 8 pellets. And just a reminder, only 4 out of the 8 pellets can deal damage from a single shot anyway, so even though you can get a 6-pellet kill beyond 11.4 meters, even if you hit all 8 pellets, only 4 of those will deal damage, so it is a 2-shot kill there. Then when it comes to the ASG-89, we saw a similar adjustment here where all of our damage ranges, aside from the maximum damage range, were increased. And with this, our really consistent 2-shot kill range went from 4.8 meters up to 6.1 meters, whereas our 2-shot kill potential went up to 10.4 meters, up from 9.1. And then on top of that, our maximum hit potential was increased up to just about 28 meters. So some nice improvements here, but our one-shot kill potential is exactly the same as before with this. And then finally, that same trend continues with the Maelstrom. Our maximum damage range where we can get a one-shot kill, that was untouched. However, our 2-shot kill potential was increased from 5.7 meters up to 7.2 meters. Our reasonably consistent 3-shot kill potential went from 9.5 meters up to 11 meters. And then our maximum hit potential, where it's likely going to take you 4 or more shots to kill, but technically speaking you could kill in 3, this was extended out to 30.7 meters. So that's it for the range adjustments on these shotguns. I should also mention all of them saw a very slight buff to our aim down sight spread. So they got slightly tighter spreads, but these are some very minor adjustments that you probably won't notice any difference with in game. Like in the case of the ASG-89, this was like a 0.5% improvement to your spread, which inherently already has some randomness. So I doubt you'll notice any real differences here, but technically they did slightly improve our aim down sight spread values. So that's it for the shotguns, or at least the primary shotguns. Like I said, we'll talk about the Olympia toward the end of the video. Next, let's move into LMGs, and there was only one LMG that was adjusted here, and this was the FENG 82. And what they did here is they massively boosted our maximum damage range. However, this doesn't affect our 3-shot kill potential to the body at all. This is just the range at which headshots are useful without needing the CHF barrel, so you can get a 2-shot kill if both of those shots hit the head. So while it was quite a big buff to that damage range, it really only helps in very specific situations, and generally speaking, when you're just shooting them in the body, which is going to be most of your gunfights, you won't notice any differences here whatsoever with the FENG. Then let's get into the Marksman rifle category, and with the Sarkov 7.62, we saw a nice range buff to our maximum damage range, and this is the range where we are capable of getting a 1-shot kill to the head even without the CHF barrel. So that went from 35.6 meters up to 43.2 meters, and that's going to cover the vast majority of typical ranges that you'll find in this game. And that's awesome to see, but our 2-shot kill range to the body hasn't changed at all here. It's still 71 meters, but good luck finding a range beyond 71 meters that's actually practical anyway. Then after that, for the DM10, we saw a really nice range improvement to our 2-shot kill potential. This went from 25 meters up to 38.1 meters. I was very surprised to see this buff because the DM10 was top tier before this update for anybody that doesn't mind using a semi-auto. That 180 millisecond time to kill to the body is incredible, and now they've really noticeably extended the range on this. So if you're still playing Black Ops 6 and you haven't tried the DM10 lately, this thing is an absolute monster, especially after this update. So definitely give it a shot. And then finally, for the Marksman rifle changes, the TR2 saw a range buff to both its maximum damage range, where you only need 1 headshot mixed in with body shots to get a 2-shot kill, as well as its 3-shot kill potential. That went from 47 meters up to 50.8 meters. So a nice little buff here, but I would say the highlight of these Marksman rifle buffs was definitely with the DM10. Then for sniper rifles, we saw an adjustment to the SVD with the full auto mod. So this doesn't apply to the base SVD at all. And with this, we saw quite a big range buff. Our 2-shot kill potential went from just over 30 meters to now almost 46 meters. So massive improvement there to our 2-shot kill potential to the body. And our 3-shot kill range was also improved nicely. On top of this, they unlocked the stock category when using the full auto mod, so we can use a stock to cut down on our flinch, for instance, which I would recommend if you are going to be using this, or you could use something like the infiltrator stock for a faster aim walking speed. Speaking of flinch, they reduced the amount of flinch you receive while using this by 25%, and that's one of the big downsides of using this is we saw no improvement to our flinch, and sniper rifles have a very high flinch value by default. So this helps somewhat, but this is still a very high flinch value. So I'd still recommend using something like the heavy stock or the combat stock to cut down on this even more, now that we have access to stocks. And then finally, they did reduce our view kick, gun kick, visual recoil, and idle sway. And as you can see, there's a nice improvement here to our overall recoil and accuracy. And all of these changes combined are going to make this a much better option than it was pre-patch. Now after that, all of the pistols saw some range buffs, but they're almost negligible improvements in every one of these cases. So looking at the 9mm PM, for instance, you can see both range values were just very slightly improved. But honestly, you probably will never notice this. It's the same thing with the Gakova. All of our values were improved very slightly, but good luck noticing any difference there whatsoever. With the GS45 though, there is a more noticeable improvement here to our 2-shot kill potential. This went from 6.4 meters up to 7.6 meters. While I'm not saying this was a massive improvement by any means, it at least may actually be a noticeable improvement, unlike the other improvements we've been seeing to the pistols. And then finally, with the Strider 22, we once again have a pretty negligible improvement to our ranges. Honestly, outside of that GS45 buff, I don't even know why they bothered touching these. I don't think anybody's going to be able to tell any difference here whatsoever. And with that, this finally leaves us with the last weapon adjustment that we saw, and this is to the Olympia. And let's start this off with the base Olympia, so not using the short barrel attachment. With this, they nerfed all of our damage ranges aside from our maximum damage range. And this was especially noticeable with our one-shot kill potential. Previously, this was 14.8 meters. Now it's only 11.4 meters. So pretty big nerf there, although that is still a very respectable one-shot kill potential for a secondary weapon. So I wouldn't say they nerfed it into the ground, but this one should be a very noticeable nerf. This isn't going to be nearly as powerful as it was before this update. Also, our maximum hit potential, that was hit pretty hard. Previously, it was 40.6 meters. Now it's 34.3 meters. On top of that, for the Olympia, we saw a nerf to our aim down sight spread. Pre-patch, this was 2.2 degrees. That has been increased to 2.7 degrees. And that means when aiming down sight, you're going to have a larger spread and therefore a higher chance of missing some pellets. So altogether, those are some pretty noticeable nerfs to the base Olympia. However, the short barrel actually saw a slight buff. And this was to all of our damage ranges aside from the maximum damage range. And you can see they're generally fairly minor improvements, and at the end of the day, you still have a noticeably worse one-shot kill potential when using the short barrel. I should mention, on top of this, while using the short barrel, our sprint to fire improvement increased from 25 milliseconds up to 40 milliseconds, and our aim down sight speed improvement increased from 50 milliseconds up to 70 milliseconds. So a couple handling buffs there as well to make the short barrel a slightly more attractive option. And while it did get these buffs, I wouldn't necessarily say the short barrel is the obvious choice now. It's still a clear trade-off. You are sacrificing some of that damage range in order to get some better handling stats. And there we go. That's going to wrap it up for all of the weapon balancing that took place for Black Ops 6's multiplayer with the Season 5 update. Overall, definitely some interesting improvements here, some surprises, especially with the DM10. That was very surprising to see such a big buff, or honestly any buff at all. I thought it was excellent before this update. It is nice to see the Olympia catch a bit of a nerf, because I know that can be a little bit annoying, especially with it being a secondary weapon. Whereas for the other shotguns, they're a lot more viable now on the maps outside of something like Stakeout 24/7, for instance. Now, of course, these are just some of my thoughts on these adjustments, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about the weapon balancing changes that took place with the Season 5 update? Are you guys generally happy with these changes, or not so much? If you enjoyed this video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.